So in this video, I will be showing you how to use the free software called Gimp, which is not like Lightroom Classic, but more like Photoshop. So as you can see, it looks a lot like Photoshop in the beginning, so it's going to act a little bit more like Photoshop, but I will show you that you can still do basic editing much like you can do in Lightroom. If you have more experience with something like Photoshop, then this is a great software that you don't have to spend any money on. But if you are looking to do more professional, then you need to purchase something just like Photoshop or Lightroom or any of the Creative Cloud. But it's quite simple to set up, and let's get started. So the first thing is a drop and drag of your photo into your software. And as you can see, it's a really nice flower, and you can see that it's definitely set up where you can see the images that you are using, the layers that you are using, and all these different types of tools, as well as your regular toolbar. So the first thing is that you really need to just stick with this toolbar called Colors. So the drop-down menu, so here are your basics. It's not like Lightroom where everything's just in the panel and you just switch over. If you want to change something, you have to click on that and open up the box. And as you can see, exposure, always start with your exposure. You can see it's down here. So if you look at the pointer tool, you can go through your pointer. You can do a preview. You can do a split view, which is really good if you're not quite sure if you want something to be dramatically changed. And you can also, if you can see where I have my, down here in the exposure where it's at 0, I have two different types of arrow tools. I have this double arrow tool, which is far more of a fine slight adjustment. If you want to make the perfect color, you can also type in your numbers, like I want to bring this back to 0. And then you also have this up arrow, and this is more dramatic. So you can see it kind of going from one to another. So it's all based on how you want to change. So I'm just going to use one of these fine arrows and just give myself a little bit more exposure. So, and then press OK. So you can see it's kind of a little overexposed, which is fine. You go to Colors, and now you want to go into Shadows and Highlights, and you can do the same thing with the highlights. Bring them down so that you can see a little bit more detail. Again, if you want to do bigger, a little brighter. And then you can also do the same thing with the shadows. You can bring down the shadows or bring up the shadows. This one doesn't need it. It does not have too much shadow to it. And then press OK. So we have other tools up here that we want to use. The color temperature is a good one to understand. So you have two different temperature settings. You have the original temperature setting, which you don't need to change in this case, and you are intended temperature. So remember for temperature that the lower the number, the cooler it is, so the more blue it will become. As well as if you get to higher numbers, you're going to get warmer, and it depends on the type of photo you want to present. So as you can see, I can make it really blue, or I can make it really orange and yellow. So in this case, because it was kind of a little sunny, I just want to turn it a little bit more blue. And as you can see, the split view really helps to determine the difference between the pink color. Okay. So you have other tools that you can use. None of them are really important at this point. So you can change the contrast, you can change the brightness, but again, those are not colors that you need to do. And if you're really creative, you can go to the curves, which is fun to sort of play with, but you don't have to do that. Reset. There is hue and saturation. Again, these are more advanced topics, and you can turn in, you can bring out the blues a little bit more, or out. Depends on the type of photo you want to present. But really, other than that, you do not need to do very much. Go to File. You can export just like you do in Lightroom or Photoshop, and then name it and export.